In this video, you'll discover how childhood experiences shape adult relationships. Learn about the impact of unresolved issues and gain insights into fostering mutual growth with your partner. Join us for a journey of self-discovery and understanding.
I just did what I did. And I remember being quite frustrated in the beginning because I was always quite confident about the value of my ideas. So that by the time I put something out there, I knew that whatever somebody thought of it, I was right, you know. And it frustrated me that the world didn't come beating a path to my door. And my wife said to me, don't worry about it and don't try and make it happen. Just keep doing your work. And that's all that happened. So the books happened, but they didn't all immediately become overnight sensations. They did well, but over years, people discovered them all over the world. So that's what happened. And in terms of the media, I didn't do any of it. I mean, all the things you see on YouTube, I don't post any of them. So I didn't do, to tell you the truth, I didn't do anything. So I can't give you advice because I didn't create that flood of interest. It just burgeoned and came and built on its own. That's what I can tell you. There was no strategy behind it. There was no intention behind it. I just kept saying what I'm saying and writing my books, and then it just gradually, the public responded. But there was no conscious strategy
behind it.
So that's not much help, but that's what happened. Well, yeah. I used to be a teacher before I was a physician.
Oh, interesting.
And it's just interesting how in the end it all comes around.
Yes.
All I can tell you is whatever your passion is and whatever your work is, do it and rely on the world to respond.
Sure.
Human beings are relational creatures. Important circuits of our brain are dedicated to relationships. And the brain develops an interaction with the environment, particularly in the early years, beginning already in uterus. So if we receive the right relationships.
In this part of the video, Dr. Gabor discusses the impact of childhood experiences on adult relationships, highlighting how unresolved issues can influence partner selection.
The right connections, the right understanding, the right acceptance, the right love. In the beginning, then our template is for healthy, connected, mutually respectful, loving relationships. But if that template is a disturbed one, if our needs for being understood, being seen, being received, being cared for, being validated are not met, then those same brain circuits that modulate relationships now become troubled. And generally, this is when I talk to couples, I say, I got bad news for you. You always marry somebody that's going to trigger for you every unhappiness that you ever had in your childhood. So when we find somebody to be in a relationship with, it happens on two levels. One level is, I find them attractive, they're humorous, they're fun to be with, there's a commonality, you know, so that there's the attractiveness. That's important. But underneath it, there's something else. Underneath it, there's a looking for the love that we never got in the first place. So, for example, why do so many women, specifically, who were abused in childhood, end up with abusive men? Which they do, repeatedly. And you think, what's wrong with them? Well, there's nothing wrong with them. What's wrong is, whose love did they most want when they were kids? Precisely that abusive person. So unconsciously, they'll be drawn towards men who've got that abusive potential. Because that's where they're looking for love. Now, this is generally true. So my wife and I have been married 55 years now. And yes, we found each other attractive and fun, and we had a lot to talk about. But on a deep level, I was compensating for the love I didn't get as a child the way I needed it, and so was she. In other words, we married our parents' dysfunctions. And then the relationship becomes either destroyed by that, or you grow mutually. So relationships very much a matter of growing up together, if that can happen. But I guarantee you, when you marry somebody, you're going to find both your dreams and your worst nightmare.
That's profound, that we're all seeking, subconsciously, we're seeking our parents' dysfunction.
Yeah, because that's where we wanted the love. So we're still looking for the love. Now, that's wired into our brains, and it's wired into our bodies. And very often when I speak to people and they're upset about their relationship, and they say, well, what's in your body? And they'll say, well, there's tension, there's, my heart's beating fast, my throat is tight. I say, how familiar is that feeling? Goes way back to childhood.
Wow. So in terms of our unhealthy, should I say, when we have those unhealthy relationships, how does that then manifest itself physically? So whether that be an unhealthy childhood relationship, or even as an adult, if we're in a marriage or we're dating someone and it's unhealthy and we know it is, how does that manifest itself physically?
Well, it'll manifest itself in physical states, such as I described, tension in the body, upsets of the intestines. See, people are relational creatures, and we always think of ourselves as sort of discrete individuals. But like in my marriage, if I can be self-disclosing here, when I was being dishonest, my wife would get a neck pain. Literally.
We get a neck pain.
So after a while, she learned, I got this neck ache. Are you lying to me right now?
In this video, you'll discover how childhood experiences shape adult relationships. Dr. Gabor Maté discusses the connection between the vagus nerve and emotional health, illustrating how emotional disturbances in relationships can manifest as physical symptoms. He emphasizes that children's relational environments play a crucial role in shaping their future adult relationships, highlighting the lasting impact of early experiences.
And I was, intestinal upset. We tend to think of it as, this problem with the individual's intestinal tract. But the intestinal tract is very responsive to relationship, because there's a big nerve called the vagus nerve. They call it the wandering nerve. It's the largest autonomic nerve in the body, and it connects the organs to the brain. And when the brain picks up a hint of disturbance, the vagus will act up, and now you're going to have stomach aches and diarrhea and or constipation even, and so on, because there's something disturbed in the relationship. The whole point is we're wired together as human beings, and so that'll manifest through our nervous system. So it shows up in the body. Children are very much creatures of relation, and they're very dependent on the parents' emotional states. So if you want to know if a couple is having tensions, there's two things you can do. You can ask the mother and the father, or you can measure the child's stress hormone levels. And the child's stress hormone levels will be a perfect readout of the parents' state of relationship.
Wow.
We need to be aware.
We need to be aware.
And the more body awareness we have, and realizing that our bodies are responsive to the environment, the more of a clear map we have to our relationship.
Okay.
The Western medicine that I'm trained in tends to separate the mind from the body. Women might go to, or men for that matter, might go to a physician with certain physical symptoms, and the doctors will look for the source only within the body itself. Whereas very often the source is interactional and relational.
Choosing a partner is highlighted as one of the most significant yet often unconscious decisions in life, influenced by deeper, unrecognized factors.
Now, correct me on this,
Yeah.
because I've always said who we choose as our partner is one of the most important decisions of our life.
It's one of the most important decisions, And it's, in many ways, it's also one of the least conscious decisions. Because the conscious reasons that you have may be valid, but there's so much more to it that is unconscious.
Yes.
And then in any successful relationship, the task of the relationship really is to make that unconscious conscious. Because what we all want is freedom. But there's no freedom without awareness. So if I'm unaware of all these things that are motivating me, how can I talk about being free?
You do believe that's true then? Who we choose as a partner is one of the most important decisions of our life.
Well, it's the most important decision we ever make, you know, and again, it's the one that we're very often the least conscious of all the factors that go into it.
Yes.
Let me talk about attachment, authenticity, and come back to status.
Okay.
So, in the book, The Myth and Normal, children are born with certain needs. Now, one of the essential needs is attachment. Attachment being the drive to be close to somebody for the sake of being taken care of, or to take care of the other. So the essence of the attachment drive, not just in human beings, but in all mammals, and even in birds, is so that the young, vulnerable one can be taken care of by the more mature adult one. So the adult has a attachment instinct towards the vulnerable infant, and the infant has an attachment need towards the adult, so that the caretaking can occur the way nature intended it. So now the attachment drive stays with us all our lives. It's never as dire and as dominant and as definitive as it is in childhood, because you're never as vulnerable and helpless and immature, but it stays with us so that as adults and old people, we still have an attachment need. We're just human beings. We're wired for attachment. So that's clear. But we also have a need to be ourselves, to be authentic, which means to be in touch with our bodies, to be touch with our emotions, and to be able to act according to the truth of ourselves. Now, very simple example, gut feelings. I often ask people this question, which I can put it to you. Have you ever had the experience of having a strong gut feeling, not listening to it, and being sorry afterwards?
Absolutely.
Okay, now, so that tells me about your childhood. Because, and by the way, we all give the same answer you usually did. Gut feelings are not luxuries. We don't survive without them. They tell us about reality. And nature wired us for it. In nature, where we evolved, how long does any creature survive if they're not in touch with their gut feelings?
Yeah, not long at all.
So it's an essential need to be connected to self, auto meaning the self, authenticity. All right, so we have these two needs, to be in touch with ourselves, to be able to express that selfhood, and to be able to act on it, and we have the need to attach. Well, what happens to a child where they need to attach, but if they're being themselves, fully expressed, they're not accepted by the parents? Not because the parents don't love them,
right,
but simply because they're too traumatized, or too stressed, or unavailable, or just they can't see the child exactly. Now the child's got this dilemma, an unconscious dilemma. I can be myself, but then I won't be accepted. Or I can go for the attachment by suppressing myself.
My authenticity.
Yeah, now what do you suppose the child has to do in every case?
Right. Suppress yourself.
Suppress yourself.
Yes.
Now, at some point, that's where we lose in touch with our gut feelings. So I don't know what happened to you, but something happened at some point where you learned that for the sake of survival, that is to say, for the sake of maintaining your attachment relationship, you had to give up some aspect of yourself. Mm. And so then later on, the gut feeling comes along, we don't listen, and then we suffer. Yeah. So maturity is in many ways, and this can happen in relationship, of course, because then we take our lack of authenticity and our need for attachment into our relationship.
Right.
And it's so hard then to be ourselves in relationship. So it's basically very often two only partially authentic selves, or two inauthentic selves, get into relationship with each other. And now the task is, can we grow up to be authentic together so we can be ourselves and still be in relationship?
Wow.
Well, that's a beautiful challenge, but it's also a very difficult one.
In closing, this video sheds light on the profound influence of childhood experiences on adult relationships, as articulated by Dr. Gabor Maté. Understanding the connection between our early relational environments and our emotional health can empower us to foster healthier connections in our lives. If you found this discussion insightful, consider subscribing to Your Inner Child Matters for more content that explores the intricacies of our emotional well-being. Thank you for watching, and remember to nurture your inner child.